What's up, everybody? This is For Verts, where we cover the NFL and college football, and Penn State's coaching search is heating up. I want to get caught up on the latest rumors and the latest buzz around certain candidates as Penn State is on the hunt to replace James Franklin. My name is Harrison Graham. Let's dive into it here. Urban Meyer, his name always seems to pop up when these big jobs open up. He says he's not interested. Here's what the legendary Florida and Ohio State head coach had to say. He said, "I certainly did not meet with Penn State about the job. Yeah, my phone started blowing up last week, and I've got a lot of respect for Penn State, but I have no interest in coaching again. So no, of course not." You know, I think 5 years ago, I didn't really buy it when Urban would kind of shoot down these rumors, and that was proven when he took the Jaguars job. But I think that went so poorly and that I think he's actually done. I think he likes doing TV. It's more laid back. He's still close to the game. I also think you take the Penn State job, you kind of lose your connection to Ohio State a little bit because that is a rival of Ohio State. I think if he were to coach again, it would only be if Ryan Day left Ohio State and they wanted him back. I don't think he would take any other job at this point. So I think Urban Meyer's just kind of done. And that's just the way it is. Subscribe to the channel. We bring you daily content here on For Verts, football coverage, college, NFL. We do it all here on the channel. So hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. All right, what about Brian Hartline, the current offensive coordinator at Ohio State, longtime receivers coach, played for the Buckeyes as well. He's a name that's starting to pop up for some of these jobs. Urban Meyer had this to say about Hartline, who was on his staff at Ohio State and has remained on staff under Ryan Day. He said, "I do think he's ready to be a head coach. I'm a big Brian Hartline fan, always have been. He just needed the experience. I'm glad he stayed at Ohio State. He had chances to leave, but he learned from us and learned from Coach Ryan Day." I like Brian Hartline a lot. I mean, I think there's a lot to like about him as a candidate. He's a young guy at 38 years old, so if you hit, you could have him for 20 years potentially. He's been an Ohio State assistant since 2017, so like he knows what it looks like to win, and he's learned under Urban Meyer. He's learned under Ryan Day, two of the better coaches in college football this century. He's risen up the ranks there, started as kind of just a deep quality control assistant. Now he's the offensive coordinator. Elite recruiter. That's what he's always been known as, especially for wide receivers. Played wide receiver, understands that position. Obviously, I mean, look at the names they've brought in over the years, right? Like Jeremiah Smith right now, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jigba, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. I mean, them and LSU are kind of the standard for wide receivers in college football, and I would say Ohio State even more so. He knows what he's doing. And what has Penn State never had elite roster-wise? They've never really had those top-end receivers. You know, they had Allen Robinson, they had Jahan Dotson. Ohio State has like 3 of those every year. So you could bring some big-time playmakers to a school that has recruited elsewhere very good, offensive line, defensive line, stuff like that. They need good receivers. They need good quarterback play. Brian Hartline knows what that looks like. I'm being real when I say this. If you can't get Lane Kiffin, I'd go get Brian Hartline if I was Penn State. He knows the Big Ten. He can recruit the area. Again, I think he could kind of inject an influx of offensive talent that Penn State hasn't always had. They've always been like this hard-nosed defensive program. I think that could maintain while adding, some modernization to the offensive side of the ball. I mean, it's not that much different from Ohio State. They 15, 20 years ago were not considered an offensive juggernaut, but now they're like the standard for offense in college football. So I think it would be a pretty good hire. A little bold. He's never been a head coach, but he has been a key cog for arguably the best program over the last decade or so. All right, more to discuss on Penn State's head coaching search, but first, we want to tell you guys about our awesome sponsor, PrizePicks. Daily fantasy made easy at prizepicks.com/CLNS. The hard-hitting football action is even better with PrizePicks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. It's very simple to play PrizePicks. After you create an account, you can set a lineup in as little as 60 seconds, and a lineup looks like this. 2 or more players, up to 6 players, and you take more or less on their stat projections. All sports available: football, basketball, baseball, hockey. It's all there for you. A little 2-player lineup for you guys this weekend. I took more on Caleb Williams' rushing yards, 20.5, and I took less on J.J. McCarthy's passing yards. 2-player lineup, $20 to win $55. bucks. Really easy to play, really fun to play. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use our code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS. To get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it is good to be right. Okay, how about this? How about Lincoln Riley? So he addressed the rumors around him drawing interest from other programs after USC's latest game. He said this, quote, "You guys know what I sacrificed to be here. I'm where I need to be," which is obviously when he left Oklahoma to go to USC. And I'm not saying he's lying there, but that's not like a major denial either. Like, that's classic coach speak, which Lincoln Riley is an expert at. When he was at OU, he was very controlling in terms of like media access and stuff like that. I remember when he was drawing interest from LSU, USC, he was like, I'm not. Why would I leave Oklahoma? Then he did. I'm not saying he wants to leave. I'm just saying, would it surprise anyone if he did? We've seen this before. Josh Pate, who is, I would say, the #1 college football commentator at this point, in terms of covering the sport, said this when he joined Bussin' with the Boys last week. He said, "I'll just put this on your radar. You ready? Let's just keep an eye on Lincoln Riley at USC." And then Paul Finebaum, who I'm not a fan of after he compared Arch Manning to Tim Tebow, but that's neither here nor there. He said this when it comes to Lincoln Riley and Penn State. One other name, and I've been critical of this guy, but he's done a really good job this year of keeping his program together. That's Lincoln Riley. I'm not just saying this to say it, but I keep hearing whispers that he could be in play, and if he is, it's good for him. Something to remember, like I said earlier, it was pretty shocking when he left Oklahoma for USC. Because remember, the buzz at the time was LSU's pushing for him. And it was like, okay, I could see him going to LSU because Oklahoma at the time was still in the Big 12. And it's like, OU, LSU, pretty close historically. But the SEC is the better conference. I could see him making that move. But he went to USC, which was still in the Pac-12 at the time, a lesser conference than the Big 12 at the time. And USC was not in a great place. Clay Helton, that thing had fallen apart. They threw him a bunch of money, but LSU was going to offer him a big contract as well. And everybody's like, really? He's going to the West Coast? USC hasn't had the shine on that program in a long time. So you can't rule this out with Lincoln Riley. Now, I will say this. It feels like he's finally getting momentum at USC. Remember that first year with Caleb Williams following him over there? They had this magical season where they weren't that talented, but Caleb and Jordan Addison just carried them, and they almost made the college football playoff. And then the last year of Caleb, it just kind of fell apart. And, since then, they've been swimming uphill. But this year, they got an outside shot at making the playoff, and they have the #1 recruiting class for 2026. So he's finally gaining his footing there, it would seem like. So I do agree it would be kind of weird if this is when he left. But I think to Finebaum's point of, okay, his name is back in the mix now. Like, if this was last year with all these big jobs opening, I don't think you'd be hearing Lincoln Riley. But, okay, they're in the mix to make the playoff this year. The arrow's pointing up with the recruiting out there. Seems like he's getting his footing, and it's not a strong candidate pool right now. I could see why a Penn State would want Lincoln Riley. The question is, does he want to make the switch now when he finally has momentum at USC? I would say probably not, but at the same time, I didn't think he would leave Oklahoma for USC, so you can't rule it out. Who should Penn State hire as their next head coach? You guys let me know in the comments of this video. Who would you like to see Penn State hire? Some other names to watch that have been gaining some buzz and momentum. Brent Key, the Georgia Tech head coach, he's going to get one of these gigs. I mean, what he's done at Georgia Tech with Haynes King, that offense, I think is pretty damn impressive. Clark Lee, now, do you want to hire the Vanderbilt coach again? You can't think that way if you're Penn State, but what he's done with Diego Pavia and that Vandy program to have them in the mix in the SEC to make the playoff, that's tough to ignore. And then Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, same deal. They're not going to make the playoff, but he's done a pretty good job of kind of resurrecting a program that had fallen behind the wayside there in the SEC. All right, that's going to do it. If there's more major updates when it comes to the Penn State head coaching job, we will have you guys covered on that. So be sure to subscribe and follow. My name is Harrison Graham. We'll see you guys soon.